President Trump has signed the bill to end the 43-day shutdown of government after it was passed by the U.S. House of Representatives. Welcoming the breakthrough, he criticized the Democrats and said there should never be another shutdown. Democrats had been refusing to open government unless President Trump and the Republicans agreed to extend health insurance subsidies. But as with the Senate earlier this week, several broke ranks to vote with the Republican Party. The shutdown saw hundreds of thousands of government workers going without pay and Americans on low incomes not receiving food stamps. The new legislation will fund the government for the next couple of months until January the 30th. It'll also fund other programs such as the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, which feeds some 42 million Americans. That program will be funded through September 2026. So if there were to be another government shutdown in January, that SNAP program will not be affected. Signing the bill into law, President Trump blamed the Democratic Party for what he called the madness of the past 43 days.
For the past 43 days, Democrats in Congress shut down the government of the United States in an attempt to extort American taxpayers for hundreds of billions of dollars for illegal aliens and people that came into our country illegally, from gangs, from prisons, from mental institutions. They wanted to pay them $1.5 trillion, which would have really hurt our healthcare businesses and our recipients at levels never seen before. Today, we're sending a clear message that we will never give in to extortion, because that's what it was. They tried to extort. The Democrats tried to extort our country. In just a moment, I'll sign a bill exactly like we asked Democrats to send us all along, many days ago. This cost the country $1.5 trillion, this little excursion that they took us on. Republicans never wanted a shutdown and voted 15 times for a clean continuation of funding. There's never been a time when one or the other party ever didn't sign a continuation. It's just a continuation, not a big deal. It's a continuation, and we'll talk later. Yet the extremists in the other party insisted on creating the longest government shutdown in American history, and they did it purely for political reasons. Over the past 7 weeks, the Democrats' shutdown has inflicted massive harm. They caused 20,000 flights to be canceled or delayed. They departed so many times, so late. People were hurt so badly. Nobody's ever seen anything like this one. This was a no-brainer. This was an easy extension. But they didn't want to do it the easy way. They had to do it the hard way. And they look very bad, the Democrats do. They deprived more than 1 million government workers from their paychecks and cut off food stamp benefits for millions and millions more Americans in need. They caused tens of thousands of federal contractors and small businesses to go unpaid, and the total effect of the damage their antics caused will take weeks and probably months to really calculate accurately, including the serious harm that they did to our economy and to people and to families. So I just want to tell the American people, you should not forget this.
President Trump. Well, for more on this, let's speak now to Arise special correspondent James Blue. He left New York about 24 hours ago and joins me now on the line from London. Good to see you, James. So the US federal government rolls back into action after 6 weeks of political deadlock. During that time, many essential services and operations, as you told us, had come to a complete standstill. Tell us more.
Yeah, Charles, the standstill was very, very apparent. The national parks were closed. The government offices weren't working. Veterans Affairs, the State Department. It was a real ghost town across the U.S. government, with the exception of members of Congress and members of the U.S. Senate and the U.S. House. They were still getting paid. But, the real sort of pain were the U.S. government workers at the airports, the air traffic controllers, you name it, people who were not able to go to work, and some who had to go to work without any pay. You've heard about the SNAP benefits, people who are on the welfare assistance not getting the monies that they needed to buy their groceries. All of these things sort of wound up together, and people were really hurting. The biggest problem with the shutdown and the reason why the Democrats caved in the Senate was that there was no sense of any leverage that things were going to get better. And so you had these groups of people who were just sitting at home, not getting paid, not doing anything. And it was just a real dire situation. And so you see there the House vote from last night. It passed the House, and the government has been able to reopen, and President Trump signed it last night. But a lot of the pain was real, and now the big effort is to try to get money into people's pockets as quickly as possible.
In practical terms, I mean, this means that those thousands of flights across the US will not be disrupted. I think you were affected by one of them, actually, and millions of workers will now get paid. I mean, that must come as a big relief to many of those struggling to keep their financial operations at home running.
Yes. So flights will get going again. However, because the airlines have planes in the wrong places, because they have staff in the wrong places, and because some of the air traffic controllers haven't come back yet, it's going to take a few days. The sense is that flights won't be back to normal until about Monday or Tuesday of next week. What really happened was that the pain of the shutdown extended beyond the actual workers who were in the federal government, but also included the American public. And it was the American public and the way this was hurting just sort of regular people trying to get to their grandmothers, trying to get to do the business that they needed to do. That's what really led people, that's what led the Democrats to decide maybe we can actually end this and come up with a compromise. With the Republicans. So yes, that is a big relief. And financial operations are running again. Money is being printed, checks are going out, and things are moving. I mean, one good sign, it turns out that the Treasury and all of the departments are trying to get people their back pay as soon as possible. And what that will do, it will sort of speed up, and the consequence of not having been paid for this period of time will hopefully be somewhat less dangerous and less calamitous.
But I mean, many Democrats are not at all thrilled with this deal, are they? I mean, how do you match that against the lobby mounted by federal workers telling their lawmakers that they simply can't cope without having any money in their bank accounts?
Yeah, so this was a real sort of political hot potato, and if you look at recent polls, the Democrats and Republicans are sort of almost equal in terms of who's responsible and who should take the blame. Republicans come out slightly with slightly more blame than the Democrats, but what really, really the tension that you have the unions for the federal employees who were imploring the Democrats to end the standoff so that their members could get back to work and start getting paychecks. And you had the lion's share of the Democratic Party in Congress really willing to stand up. As you know, Charles, we just had elections in the United States just last week. These were the off-year elections, and the Democrats did really well. There's a big conversation going on trying to understand why now. And the why now was the pain. You had these 8 senators, all Democrats except one independent, the former governor of Maine, Senator Angus King, and they basically decided that they were never going to get more from the Republicans. And so why cause so much pain for the people in their districts? I mean, was it a gamble? Yes. And a number of people think that the Democrats have played a very good hand quite badly. And we'll just sort of have to see, because The reality is what this standoff was about, the medical subsidies for people to afford Obamacare, they are rising. They will continue to rise. And when the Republicans who voted for President Trump begin to see their bills, the Democrats believe there's going to be a price to pay. So they're just waiting for that moment.
Well, I mean, let's just delve a bit deeper into that, because looking back to the 1st of October, when the government shut down over that row because of the funding for subsidies for healthcare across America, we understood that that still, I mean, we understand that that still hasn't changed and that funding will still end in December, as you mentioned just now. But the Republicans had managed to land this deal by promising not to support the extension of those subsidies, but at least to hold a vote in the Senate. I mean, what does that translate into in reality?
Yeah, it's a real sort of window for the Republicans to sort of have their cake and eat it too. Basically, they're saying, yes, we'll vote on it. There's no guarantee that they will pass it. There's no guarantee that the House will pass it. And there's no guarantee that President Trump would sign it if it were to become law. What the Democrats are hoping for is that the pain, the suffering, and the real intense upset and anger over these increased premiums. Charles, some premiums are going up 100%. People with large families, they're going up 150%. I heard a report today of a man. He is a family of four. He's 57. He's decided to, in order to pay for his health care, he has to stop saving for his insurance. Another person in this report, which was on our radio in the US, spoke of a family who were thinking of moving overseas to a country that actually guaranteed health care so they would no longer have to worry about spending out of pocket. Here's the real story. This issue with the Obamacare subsidies is not going away. What happened is many more people, many people in Republican areas, many people voting for President Donald Trump are able to afford and enjoy health care because of these subsidies. When those prices go up because of the lack of subsidy, they are going to be upset. And the Democrats are hoping that that upset will really push the Republicans to actually do something. But the real issue is um, the Republicans are thinking, why give this money to Obamacare? Why not just give it directly to the voters and the constituents around the country? I think there are a lot of people who worried if they were to do that, that it would drive up inflation. And in addition to supporting actual individual Americans and their health care, those Medicaid funds also help hospitals and they help clinics and they help the VA and they sort of work throughout the healthcare system. So simply moving monies directly to Americans so that they can pay for their own healthcare instead of having to do it through the subsidies would not necessarily solve the problem that the Trump administration seemingly wants to get settled.
And very briefly, James, because we've got to move on, of course, the stopgap funding that President Trump has signed into law is going to run out at the end of January. So more dialogue, otherwise another shutdown.
Yeah, so Charles, that's right. There is potential for another shutdown, but what they have done is they have extended funding for very particular departments where the prospect of shutdown would be pretty dire. And so there's hope that with the additional monies going to the departments that are considered essential, that that would sort of give them some breathing room. What they've done is that they've given themselves, basically through the holiday season and up until New Year, they've given themselves the possibility to come up with a solution. Whether they can get there, whether they can do it, we don't know. But the same situation that we've had here could repeat, although there would be some monies going to various departments depending on where they are and depending on sort of the specific types of spending that would be required. Having said that, we will be here again. I think we'll be here soon in January. And I think the pain that people have experienced these past 43 days could return at that time.
Okay, well, stay with us, James, because we'd like to get your take on this next story. Democrat politicians in the US have released emails which they say suggest Donald Trump was aware of sexual abuse by the convicted pedophile Jeffrey Epstein. One of the messages sent by Epstein said the president knew of the girls and that he spent time with one of the victims at Epstein's house, but didn't elaborate further. That victim was reportedly Virginia Giuffre, who died by suicide earlier this year. The White House has accused the Democrats of attempting to create a fake narrative. Correspondents say it raises fresh questions about how much Donald Trump knew and when he knew it. Mr. Trump has consistently denied any wrongdoing in relation to Epstein. There are still lots of documents that are held by the Department of Justice, which is resisting releasing them.
These emails prove absolutely nothing other than the fact that President Trump did nothing wrong. And what President Trump has always said is that he was from Palm Beach, and so was Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein was a member at Mar-a-Lago until President Trump kicked him out because Jeffrey Epstein was a pedophile and he was a creep. And this email you refer to with the name of a victim that was unredacted now and has since been reported on in this room, so I will go ahead and say it, Virginia Giuffre. And it was CBS's own reporting, Ouija, that recently wrote that Miss Giuffre maintained, and God rest her soul, that she maintained that there was nothing inappropriate she ever witnessed, that President Trump was always extremely professional and friendly to her. And so I think it's a question worth asking the Democrat Party, and you should all go ask them after this briefing, of why they chose to redact that name of a victim who has already publicly made statements about her relationship with Jeffrey Epstein and is unfortunately no longer with us.
And Arise correspondent James Blue is still with me on the line from London. So what kind of questions do these newly released documents, these emails raise? Do they suggest a much deeper connection that Donald Trump may have had with Jeffrey Epstein at the time?
Yeah, Charles, they suggest a deeper connection between Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein, and they suggest some connection between Donald Trump and some of the women who were in, or young ladies who were in the circle of Jeffrey Epstein. The emails and the records are quite troubling because it really shows us sort of in plain type exactly sort of what some of the conversations, the fact that Epstein had dirt on the president that he could either use to protect him or use to sort of knife him. And it really sort of shows, when you are in a swamp, everyone gets dirty, and you can't go to these emails and not really kind of think how sad. President Trump has always said that Jeffrey Epstein stole from Mar-a-Lago. She was a spa and pool girl at Mar-a-Lago, and then went on to work at Jeffrey Epstein's location in a private island where she was sexually abused. And, the fact that President Trump would sort of tell her was just really, really unbecoming and not particularly sensitive to sort of what the situation was. President Trump says that as soon as he found out about Epstein's behaviors with young girls, that he banned him from Mar-a-Lago, that he canceled his membership. And, what the files show was that there was a lot of sort of back and forth between these two. And I think that will come as a surprise. And President Trump, or then the entrepreneur, the host of The Apprentice, Trump, who was just beginning to think about running for president, he was the topic and subject of a lot of conversation. And that really, really, really is just troubling how someone who is now president of the United States could sort of be party to this kind of back and forth and sort of subject to these kind of emails and this kind of sort of, I don't want to call it speculation, but this kind of banter. It provides an insight into Donald Trump that we have not seen. I think there are going to be many more revelations coming out as the additional material is released. And so we just have to sit back and sort of really understand and get to the full picture as we can of what sort of the relationships and what was in those files, which Donald Trump fought very, very, very hard to ever having come to light.
Well, let's be clear that President Trump has consistently denied any wrongdoing in relation to Epstein, but a lot of people, including lawyers representing the victims, say they want to see all the evidence and have them independently looked at to determine whether what President Trump is saying is true or not. I mean, why is the Justice Department resisting calls to release all those files, even though public pressure is growing, including from Republican Party members who are starting to rebel?
Well, Charles, there is going to be a vote on Monday. With the end of the government shutdown, the U.S. House of Representatives got one more member. She joined the coalition, I think it's 218 members, to decide that they do want to release these additional files. Now, in these files, there could be a whole treasure trove of documents linking President Trump to Jeffrey Epstein. We're told that there are also likely to be some documents linking Melania Trump to Jeffrey Epstein. So there's a whole kind of another potential path in this story, which might involve the president's wife. Regardless of sort of what's in the records, the fact that a sufficient number of Republicans have joined Democrats to get these released, to get them into the public, and for the public to see them themselves is actually a good sign. It's a sign for transparency. It's a sign that they recognize no one is above the law. And in some ways, it is uncharacteristic of this particular Congress, but it is an indicator of how serious everyone is taking it, especially since that members of his own party have decided to go after him and force him to release them. These papers could have very damaging material on President Trump. We don't know. At the time, he was a private citizen, and at this point, there is no evidence that he was party to any of the sort of relationships with the underage girls. But because he was in that pond, he was in that pool, there's some sense of how could he not have known? And we'll just sort of have to wait and see how this plays out. But it is not a particularly good moment for President Trump or for Jeffrey Epstein and his larger family.
Indeed, we'll have to watch and see how they manage all this politically. But James, thank you very much indeed. Our special correspondent, James Blue, talking to me on the line there from London. Your turn.